Hi BookTube, it's Gina, and today I want to talk to you about something that's really important to me, which is home and a sense of place. I've thought about this a lot over the years, and I recently saw Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading's My Neck of the Woods tag. And so I thought that that would be a really good opportunity to talk about my neck of the woods using the tag, and also just some random thoughts about my sense of place, because it's something that's really important to me. And in order to talk about my place I am right now, I'm going to go back a little bit to a little bit of my history. So I am from California originally. My whole family is from California. I still have a lot of family there that I am and very much in love with and miss a lot. And I will always consider myself a Californian, a California girl to some extent. It is my original home. It is the place that I love. I'm from Southern California, lived a little bit in Northern California, fell in love with San Francisco and tried to live in San Francisco. That didn't end up working out. And I think the reason for that is because to me, places are people. They have personalities, they have hearts, they have souls, and San Francisco was my passionate boyfriend who you just knew it was not gonna be a long-term relationship from the beginning. I tried, couldn't make it work. But I really do think that places are people. And I think it's really interesting to think about it that way, because sometimes you do just fall in love with a place, and sometimes you don't. And the place that I live now is the Seattle, Washington area. I don't live in Seattle, but I live in Washington State, out in a rural area in Washington. And Seattle to me was a place that I did not fall in love with. Seattle to me was a place that it was your arranged marriage. It was a relationship that you went into going, all right. I mean, not that I know that much about arranged marriages, right? But over the many years that I have lived in this area, I have grown to love it, to deeply, deeply love it, and could not really imagine living anywhere else. Although who knows, I may, because this might not be the end for me. But the interesting thing to me is that I lived in California until 1991, and I've lived now in the Washington State area ever since. I've actually lived here longer than I lived in California, which just boggles my mind. So Kelly's My Neck of the Woods tag is a tag to encourage people to talk about the books that define their area or talk about their area. And so I do have some books that I want to talk about from this area. But before I do that, I do want to talk about two other books that I've got that really talk about place. And the first is this book called Message on the Wind. This is by Clay Jenkinson, who is a humanities scholar, a lecturer, an author. He's got a podcast that I will link below. It's wonderful. And the reason that I bring up this book is because this book is all place. You could not have a book like this without the place in which it is set. And it was just such a beautifully written and wonderful exploration of the place that the author lived in and explored, and his place there, how he fit into that. I just think that is so interesting. So I wanted to show you this because I think this really helped me to define a sense of place and make me think about it in a way that was more broad than just where I happen to live at this moment. The second I have is this Who's Your City by Richard Florida. Now, this is a discussion of place more based on economics. Richard Florida started the discussion on the rise of the creative class. And this is more related to that. But I love that the title of this is Who's Your City? It's not what's your city, where's your city, it's who's your city. And that just fits right into my thought that places are people. They are people, and this talks about why where you live is important, primarily economically, but I expand this to be it's important emotionally. It's important where you live really helps to define you as a person. And so because I live in the Seattle area, I cannot talk about my place in relation to books without talking about Nancy Pearl. Nancy Pearl is an author. She was the Seattle Public Library librarian when I first moved here, and I must be a goofball because who else? I guess a lot of people must love Nancy because she had an action figure, and she wrote a book called BookLust, which was a sort of essays on books. I had the action figure. I don't know if you can see this. This is her tiny little BookLust, and the action figure's tiny little stack of books. Is that not the cutest thing you've ever seen? But Nancy Pearl was actually an important person to me because she was a reader, she discussed books. She's got a series on the Seattle.org channel called BookLust where she interviews authors. She has written a novel, George and Lizzie. I have not read this yet, but it's on my TBR, so I will get to this. But I cannot talk about Seattle and about books in Seattle without bringing up Nancy, because I think she is just a wonderful person, an inspiration to readers, and a fantastic champion of books and libraries, which is so, so important to me. The second person, so that's my first Seattle book that I wanted to bring up. The second is Robin Hobb. So who knew that Robin Hobb, one of my favorite fantasy authors, lives also in a rural area outside of Seattle. This is her book, Fool's Errand, which is one of the Realm of the Elderlings series, which I talk about all the time because I absolutely love it. And I wanted to read you a little sentence out of it. I don't think it's out of this book. I can't remember which book it was out of, but I think when you read this, you can kind of hear Seattle in the background because this is a talk of the changing of the seasons, which I think in Seattle is something that we love and we dread because the rain lasts for so long. The gray drizzle here lasts for such a long time that we love and cherish our summers and our sunshine here. But I love this sentence from Robin Hobb, which is about the weather changing. Dawn came in the way it does at the change of the seasons, going from dark to pearly gray all in an instant. And in the moment, I smelled that summer was over, that the thunderstorm last night had drowned it and washed it away, and the days of autumn were undeniably upon us. And for me, that's a little bit of a melancholy sentence because our gray drizzle here is, personally for me, I know people love the rain. I love the rain. Being from California, I think the drizzle has always been a challenge for me. And so to me, that sentence just evokes that feeling of a little bit of melancholy when the seasons are changing and when you know that the sun in Seattle is going to be ending. The next author that I want to talk about is Jonathan Evison. And he wrote this book, West of Here, which is set in Seattle, sort of in the present day and some historical. And what I love about this is on the front of the cover. It says, "A big novel about the discovery and rediscovery of nature, starting over, and the sometimes piercing reverberations of history." And Seattle's very nature oriented. We love our trees. We've had a history, of course, with logging and with being in nature, mountains. And so I think this book really evokes a lot of that. And he also wrote, I wrote this down because I forgot about this when I was looking at this book for this video. He wrote a book called The Revised Fundamentals of Caregiving, which was actually turned into a Netflix series, or not series, a movie. And it was a really good movie. So if you haven't watched that and you're interested in Jonathan Evison, I would check out that Netflix movies because that is also wonderful. We also have a couple of authors here that I love. Elizabeth George, who wrote the Inspector Lynley series, also lives in this area. And you know, I'm a big mystery fan too, so I love that Elizabeth George is also in this region. And Debbie Macomber. I have not actually read any of Debbie Macomber's books, but if you love her cozy setting, she lives in a little town over in a sort of waterfront area called Port Orchard, and I think that is sort of the town that she based some of her cozy towns on. But if you love that the small town vibe of Debbie Macomber's books, those are also tied to Washington, which I think is really fun. And maybe I need to pick up some of her books. I've never actually read any of them, so that might be something I need to do. So thank you to Kelly for inspiring this video, My Neck of the Woods. I just really love talking about place and home. And I might pick this up and talk about home and books at some point too, because I think home is something that's also really important to me. So thank you, BookTube. Bye.